You're watching or listening to Strangers in Space, and for 30 minutes exactly, we are going to be telling you what the 8 episodes are in season 2 of Doctor Who, so you don't have to. Hi, I'm JR.
Hi, I'm Dylan.
Hi, I'm John.
So, John, you didn't get a chance to sort of give us your thoughts on Joy to the World because you weren't around for that podcast because you were running around. It was Christmas.
Yes.
And so I thought we probably would do a follow-up, but I'm not entirely sure that's going to happen. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes now to talk about Joy to the World. I'm going to give Dylan 5 seconds to talk about Joy to the World, the bits of it he saw. And also it transpires, Dylan brought this to our attention, that the AI scores for Series 1 came out. So we're going to have a little bit of a talk about AI scores and what they mean in the modern world and what these scores show us, I guess. But also because the trailer's fallen, because the series has been in the can for over a year, because broadcast is coming up, we've worked out when it's going to broadcast, the first episode, the last episode, exactly when things are going to fall. And there are things like episode lists doing the rounds on the internet now, in the sort of spoiler corners of the internet. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go through the 8 episodes, I think, and say what we think they're going to be called, who we think is going to be writing them, what we think is going to be in the episodes a little bit. Basically, this is a news catch-up, but also it's a throw forward to the second series and a bit of a preview of that, which I suppose we'll come back to, because who knows how much of this stuff we're going to get wrong, but we're going to go for it. John, Joy to the World then. What did you think of it?
Broadly speaking, obviously I'm pro Moffat, so I enjoyed it. It was Stephen Moffat running through his greatest hits again to a large degree, I thought. You've got the idea of the Doctor having to stand still there. You've got the technological afterlife on so many. There was less Nicola Coughlan than we thought there would be, I think, because the heart of that episode was the bit she wasn't in, which was a really unusual choice to make, I thought.
Although you probably listened to what we said, that was added after the fact, wasn't it? So,
yes.
Yeah. But I thought that worked.
Yes.
To illustrate the themes of the story as well, actually.
Yeah. You got people going, oh, he's stayed in one place before, he's done all that before. Doesn't matter. It's a new era. It's a new Doctor. It works. And
do you know, people forget that, don't they? Fans will watch something and say, oh, I've seen that before. And you go, when? And they say, oh, in X story. And you're like, do you know that story was like 7 years ago or 14 years ago? And the average guy watching on his sofa on a sort of Christmas Day evening at home is not thinking to himself, oh, do you know what? I saw that 7 years ago.
This is not usual Doctor Who audience. He's writing an audience of casuals, essentially.
Yeah, basically.
So, it's who cares if he's repeating his tropes like that? And the other thing,
do you know what gets me? Just because it's sort of come up, and so I can't help it. People bang on about how Chris Chibnall brought the Master back too soon. And so you went back to having an evil Master with Sacha Dhawan after you just had that amazing storyline. Do you know how long it was?
And we think 3 years?
2.5 years, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't know. Let me finish my sentence. Do you know how long it was between Roger Delgado's death and Robert Holmes resurrecting the Crispy Master?
About the same time, wasn't it?
3 years. We think of that as an absolute age. It was 3 years. It was 1973 and 1976. It's just absolutely crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all about context, isn't it? That's my point.
It's Doctor Who for an even more casual audience. And not Steve Moffat knows what he's doing. He's not writing for us. He's writing for someone who's had, particularly the start this year, you've had your Christmas lunch. You're not going to be doing too much thinking. You just want something big with a bit of heart. It's kind of reminding me a little bit of the Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe, maybe, with that kind of sentimental edge to it.
Great story, Great story.
Chris Chibnall's version would have been better, right?
Chris Chibnall didn't do any Christmas specials as well,
He did 3. They just went out on New Year's.
He did New Year's specials that are in no way festive, or because by New Year's Day, nobody cares about Christmas.
Yes.
They don't, but it's the Christmas period. Nobody says.
Oh, it's just still 12 days Christmas, so it is technically the Christmas.
Yeah. They're still Christmas specials. They just happen to go out on New Year's Day.
You're wrong and you're stupid.
Dylan, while you're there, do you want to tell us what you thought of Joy to the World?
Well, I wasn't going to watch Joy to the World, so I didn't. No, I wasn't going to watch it, and then it got to Christmas Day, and my partner Daisy was like, "No, come on, we need to watch it." I was like, "I really don't want to." I was like, "Okay, go and put it on." And I lasted about 6 or 7 minutes. I can't stand Shooty Gatwa, and I couldn't stand the music, so I turned it off. There is nothing about that version of the show that draws me in at the moment. But that's my problem, not Shooty Gatwa's.
Or indeed Russell T Davis's.
So no, it's all Russell T Davis's.
Yeah,
I did like as well the anger, the pure anger over the lockdown rules. Yeah, that's not a political point to make. It was beautifully done, and there's no way that Moffat is going. I hated lockdown at all. You have to be media illiterate to think that. I think generally.
I thought people complained about that. I didn't see that at all. That seemed to me like very heartfelt and very much in the right place. And then the ending with the sort of Bethlehem thing is just like, it's such an obvious thing for Doctor Who to do, and it's always sort of shied away from going to that sort of place. I don't think that it shouldn't go to that sort of place, and I thought the way that it did go to that place, it did it, I thought, very deftly, because it did it in a way where you can read into that what you really want to, and really it's just about celebrating Christmas rather than anything to do with Christianity. So I thought he did it very deftly, actually.
When I was umming and ahhing about whether I should watch it many months ago, when I heard that spoiler, that was the thing that tipped it over the edge for me, that she was going to turn into the star of Bethlehem. So I was just out at that point.
And yeah, actually, it's Stephen Moffat doing it. It really works. But,
I mean, Stephen Moffat's episode of last season was the episode that turned me off Doctor Who. So, and I'm generally a big Moffat fan. I just hope he doesn't go near it again.
Well, I think he's done for Doctor Who, isn't he?
Good.
So he says, yeah.
Well, yeah, but there's only 8 more episodes of Doctor Who before it's cancelled again. And we know he's not written any of those, so I think we're safe. Okay. Right, we have got a list. Some episode titles, about 5 or 6 episode titles, potentially. And a little bit about what's going on in each of them. And something that ties things in so we know the dates as well. So Easter Saturday is April the 19th. The Saturday at Easter is April the 19th this year. I think it's going to be a 2-episode drop on April the 19th, which means that episode 6 will fall on May the 17th, which is Eurovision Saturday, and episode 6 appears to have a Eurovision theme, which we'll come back to, which means that episode 7 goes out on May the 24th. We saw a spoiler which suggested that the finale takes place on May the 24th, so it makes sense for the first of those 2 episodes to go out on May the 24th. We think possibly episode 8, the final episode, might be called Mayday, which obviously has a slight double meaning, because it means to panic about something or to need help with something, as well as being the first day of May. Well, if you can't have that episode go out on the first day of May, then what better day than the last day of May for May Day, an episode to go out? And so we think, or I do, that the final episode therefore will go out on May the 31st. The whole thing fits together beautifully in between April 19th and May 31st. I cannot imagine it not being those dates. So those, as far as I'm concerned, are locked in dates. 2 episodes on April 19th up to the final episode on May the 31st. The first 2 and the final 2 episodes we think are Russell T Davies solo scripts, and there are 4 episodes in between, and we've got names for all of those, and we've got the things that we think are happening in these episodes. So should we just go through them one at a time?
Yeah.
And so I think the thing that I'm more interested in is, why has he done that? And so I guess my thought will be a why has he done that thought. The first episode, the one with the hospital setting with Verada Sethu, which introduces her, is the one that seems to be called Robot Revolution. And this is Russell T Davies, and this is another two-word name like Space Babies, where it's just really obvious, really simple, really straightforward idea with a really obvious, really simple, really straightforward name, so that he can concentrate on the character and give us something very thin in the way of a story.
Yeah, it'll be some weak AI sort of analogy, I imagine.
Yeah, it's Smith and Jones, partners in crime.
Exactly. Except now it's not even as deep and as textured as those were. I thought those sort of series opening episodes back in RTD1 had a lot more depth and texture than they do now. I think from what we've seen of Space Babies.
Agreed.
I loved the politics of Space Babies. It didn't put it in a story.
It struggled in the same way New Earth did to have a purpose, I thought, because they've done the introductions in the Christmas special. What do you do? He doesn't quite know how to play that. It's not a big opener to the season. It's not introducing anyone, so he doesn't quite know what to do with that whole story. Whereas all the other openers, they've got a purpose. You can see what they're doing. So I think it'll be a step up on Space Babies in that way.
Well, at least you're introducing a new character here. The second one, this is interesting. The second one seems to be called Lux. This is the one with the giant cartoon cat that crawls out of the cinema screen in 1950s Miami.
Very, very cool image, I thought, in the trailer.
That looks good. Do you know my thought? And so I said that my thought was going to be a where's that idea come from sort of a thought. So episode 2 of the first run was the Beatles one. Except it's not really the Beatles, is it? Because the Beatles were barely in it. It felt like the old school RTD celebrity historical, except it wasn't the celebrities that were the historical part. It was the pop culture thing. So the Devil's Chord was really about a pop culture moment rather than about the Beatles themselves. I think he's doing another pop culture moment, that being sort of American cinema during the heyday of American cinema. I think he's done a pop culture moment for the UK in that one. And in this one, it's like, oh, Disney money. So I wonder if the idea for this came after he'd had the Disney money, whereas the idea for Devil's Chord came just before he had the Disney money and before he knew quite what was going on. It just feels like Lux is what you would have done in that episode 2 spot last year if you'd have known the Disney money was going to be there before you sat down and put pen to paper.
Why you get another member of the Pantheon in the same way? Obviously, Maestro being the god of music. He's a god of stories, god of light, god of whatever.
I can well imagine it. Yeah, that was what I was thinking for sure.
I'm also very excited that from the set reports, it looked like they shot it all in Cardiff Bay in March. So I'm really excited to see how we get Miami from Cardiff.
Dylan Sackett, it's Barry Island.
Oh, Barry Island, sorry.
Well, there you go. Alex. So episode 3, this is the one with Rose Eiling-El, isn't it? The deaf woman who did well on. Did she win? I can't remember.
She won Strictly, yeah.
She did win Strictly.
It was the moment where they turned the music off and continued dancing. It was it was huge. Sure. Again, you can draw that audience in for that.
Sure, right. And so she's given some. So this one seems to be called 5 Miles Deep. Is this an under the ocean one?
Oh, I hope not. Not if we're having a whole spin-off series of sea devils and stuff. I
don't know. If it is called 5 Miles Deep, which seems to be what we've got in front of us, that sounds like it could be an under the ocean one.
I mean, they could be setting up the spin-off from there, right?
I mean, the thing is, what the last story you had on an ocean base had a hearing impaired character. Are you repeating that beat?
But as JR said, that was 45 years ago. Or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a good 10, 11 years now, actually, to be fair, right?
Yeah, it is.
And also, it's Russell T Davies. And Russell T Davies, I don't think cares. Plus, I think Russell T Davies also looks outside of the programme to see what is on people's minds outside of the programme. And there have been quite a few films about Under the Ocean lately, haven't there? There's been a real sort of reinvigoration of the sort of shark attack type thing with Sharknado and stuff like that. But there have also been quite a number of movies set in deep ocean bases, which are sort of psychological terrors. There's been a few of those lately, haven't there? One of those was from the guy who did Spontaneous. So, and there were several of those, I think, called things like, I swear I reviewed one called just something like 47 Fathoms or something, or 47 Meters or something like that. So I think that's been a thing, but a little bit.
It's the cheapish one, isn't it?
Well,
I think,
yeah.
In closed set.
Yeah, if you can do it all on sets. So that seems to be the third episode. That then could be the one that's written, a co-write between RTD and Sharma Walfall. Do we know anything about her?
I don't think I do. No, I did look her up, but
yeah, I think we.
But nothing came out of it.
No, she's done a few. She's got a few credits, but like an interesting new name, and it's always very exciting when we get new talent and not just the same old names again and again.
Right, so the next two episodes will be names that we've had before, right? And there is another basically new name, although not to listeners of the official Doctor Who podcast, which we'll get to in a moment. Fourth episode, then. This one, I think this one looks like it might be the one that's been written by Pete McTighe.
Yeah,
so
again, makes sense. Pete McTighe's in the fold. He's written a couple of episodes. He wrote Praxius, which I love. He wrote Kablam, which I don't like as much. But I've heard his novel of Kablam is very good, so it'd be interesting to see what he's done with that there. And, you know, that's what's given me some hope for the sort of Doctor Who I like for the spin-off, is that he's written most of it. I look forward to his episode as well.
And his one this time, so this is the one that we think is called Lucky Day.
Mm.
And so there seems to be a storyline going on here with a character called Conrad. And the Doctor sort of does a good turn for this character called Conrad somewhere early in the series. And then this Conrad, unbeknownst to the Doctor, goes off and begins a relationship with Ruby. So this is where Ruby comes back into the program. And so the thing that we've read about this one is that this would be a Dr. Light episode. So there's no Doctor in this one. And there's no Varada Sethu in this one. But instead, this one's all about Conrad and Ruby. And Unit. This is a Unit one as well, apparently, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure that's right, because I read something about from one of the spoiler websites, I read something about it looked like the Conrad Ruby bit in this was a flashback rather than the main aspect of the story.
Oh, interesting.
So it's possible it could be that Ruby and Conrad are only in it briefly in flashbacks or something like that. Or it could be that somebody got hold of the wrong end of the stick and there is a flashback within the episode to something that happened to Ruby and Conrad in an episode that's about Ruby and Conrad anyway.
It could be like the consequences of those kind of little actions. That's
well, exactly.
I'm thinking.
Yes, 100%. That's what it's about. It's about the Doctor does something for somebody. Inadvertently, that somebody becomes embroiled in the Doctor's life because of a relationship he has, which nobody probably realizes. It's probably not a deliberate thing. And then maybe by the end of the story, that guy there is either the villain of the series or is some way got something.
Or it's snowballed.
Exactly. Or it could be that he's the, what was she called last time? Sue Tech. And it turned out she wasn't a villain at all, right?
Susan Triad.
Susan Triad. It turned out she wasn't a villain at all. So he could be the same thing here, is that Conrad looks like he's going to be the villain and actually turns out not to be the villain. And it looks like a kind of repeat of the sort of master thing from series 3, but actually we think we know who Mrs. Flood is, and since as we're doing spoilers here, I suppose we might as well say it. It looks like she's the renamed White Guardian.
Yeah.
And
can't remember what the Guardian of Light or something is it? That
Guardian of Chaos,
Guardian
of Light or something.
Yeah.
Order. Guide of Order would make sense.
There was some.
There
was some sort of branding guide sent out with a renamed Black Guardian and White Guardian in it, and a page that was redacted as well about some future merchandise. So make of that what you will.
Well, and that does make a sort of sense, because if you've got the Guardians playing games with people, then people are going to become the pawns in the games, right? And so if Conrad's been put together with Ruby in order to trap the Doctor, that kind of makes more sense. And so in Lux, if you do have another member of the Pantheon, maybe that is as a kind of preempting of that kind of, so it's the Guardians playing games with people, and so it's another one where you see somebody further down the ladder before you get to the Guardians at the top of the ladder, sort of thing. And episode 4 is Russell T Davies doing a Stephen Moffat, where he gets into the story midway through the series to set up 7 and 8, basically. He did it before with the long game, didn't he, in the first series?
Yes.
He used that to set up the sort of Dalek two-parter at the end. So it's not like Russell T Davies hasn't done this before himself. Episode 5, this one looks like I'm guessing this one could be the Juno Dawson episode.
Yeah, and it fits in with, he said, one of the writers of the series has been trying to get something made for 7 years, as in, and some people took it as, oh my God, this writer's never had anything made. But I think they meant specifically an episode of Doctor Who, because she was due to write an episode of Series 2 of Class, I think. And obviously she wrote Redacted and stuff, but I mean, I guess maybe she was circling around the Chibnall era as well, and this is where she's finally, or I hope she has. I think she's a decent writer with some nice ideas, and it'd be interesting to hear her voice within the series.
I think wasn't that Her Majesty's Cousin stuff, the Coven, wasn't that originally conceived as kind of a TV pitch? It might have been, or it might be. Yeah. It's got very much that kind of series that could be
right
made if someone's optioned it.
And her pitch here seems to have something to do with Nigeria. So there's a kind of Nigeria element here, whether it's set in Nigeria or whether that's just part of the story. I'm not sure.
I wonder if that's garbled, and perhaps, what was the other female writer we talked about?
Well, only Kate Herron and Bryony Redmond back for another episode.
No, of the earlier one.
Sharma Walfall.
Sharma Walfall.
Yeah.
That would make more sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if we're trying to be sort of culturally sensitive. Perhaps that's a bit of skewed information, and
maybe. But the reason why I brought it up was only more because of the subject of it being Nigeria, because Nigeria is the sort of, so every now and again you've got a country or a particular part of the world that becomes in vogue in terms of how you relate to the world around you. So Nigeria in the last few years has become where there's a population explosion, and so there's an explosion of art as well, and so there's this big explosion of sort of Nigerian influence on the world around us that's happening. And so it makes sense for Russell. And that's why I think it's episode 5, because episode 5 because Russell T Davies does love to repeat a formula, and episode 5 last time was the one that looked at the world around Doctor Who, Dot and Bubble. I wonder if this one is going to be doing something similar, looking at the world around Doctor Who again.
It could very well be. I'm just wondering whether we've got our co-writers and writers a little confused in the various corners of the internet.
Yeah. Oh no, we've got a list of writers, but we don't have a list of which episodes they've done. I'm just trying to put them together with where I think they feel like they might fit.
Yeah, possibly.
And so episode 6 is the Eurovision one, Space Eurovision. So Eurovision in space, I guess, with Rylan. Rylan will be the presenter of Eurovision in space. This one could be the one that's written by Kate Herron and Bryony Redmond. This is the episode 6 slot. Last time that was Rogue.
Yeah.
It's got a similar vibe to that, hasn't it? Because obviously Rogue was about cosplay to a large degree.
Exactly. It was about cosplay. And so episode 6 last time was something about the more specific world that Doctor Who exists in. So episode 5 looks to the outside world, and then episode 6 looks to bring the outside world into Doctor Who. And so that feels similar again to me, like you say.
It's an interesting it's one that obviously was done for Big Finish by Gareth Roberts and Clayton Hickman. But I doubt it'll be a Dalek situation where they get any sort of credit somehow.
No.
So it must be suitably different from that.
It's such an obvious idea.
Yeah.
To do Eurovision in Doctor Who, or have a episode of Doctor Who set within Eurovision. And it's not like Russell T Davies didn't do all of those kinds of things in Bad Wolf and the Parting of the Ways.
Yeah,
in the first series. So Eurovision wasn't one of the ones that he did do, but basically that's what he was doing, that kind of thing. Then you've got the 2-part finale. Mayday, well, we've already mentioned this. Mayday is the second one. The first one could be called something like Zone 47. It looks like it's set around an election. It looks like Conrad is the guy who's getting elected. It looks like this is where Ruby and Unit, of course, will come back into the story for a two-part Russell T Davies set in the modern day finale.
There was rumours that perhaps Conrad, obviously the natural comparison is Sound of Drums and The Master, but also rumours that he was a sort of Nigel Farage sort of figure.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting.
Redoing the beat from last season, isn't it, with the Roger Aquilum character?
Yeah.
Is it kind of what happens when there's the gap where Roger Aquilum isn't, or something maybe?
Yeah,
could be. Who knows? I guess we'll find out.
And of course, a Mayday is what the production office are sending out to other streamers right now.
Shall we move on to the AI scores then, which did come out?
Let's do it.
I don't know whether people would have expected the AI scores to be the same as the AI scores that the Three Tenant specials got. We got those. They were all around the 84 mark, if I remember rightly. 83, 84, 85, 86, something like that.
Yeah, the Giggle gets the highest with 85, Star Beast 84, Blue Yonder 83, and Church on Ruby Road 82.
These, though, are in the sort of mid to high 70s. So Space Babies is the lowest, obviously, at 75. The rest of them are mostly 77 and 78. And then the two-part finale goes up to 81 and 80. It's exactly where I would have expected it to be. I think people forget that specials are blips in every way. So they're blips in that they chart higher, they have higher viewing figures, they have higher AI scores, they have higher audience shares. The specials are a blip. And then when you come back to the regular series, things go back to normal. Exactly. The only time that anything significantly different in season has happened is when Jodie Whittaker got cast and debuted in an episode 1 of a season rather than a Christmas special. And so all of that curiosity about the First Woman Doctor flocked to the first few episodes of that series, and then normality reasserted itself as it always does. And I've said this so many times, so I'm just going to say it in a quick sentence and be done. In an age of television where we have buttons on our remote control to watch anything that's ever been made, either for television or for the cinema, at the touch of a button, on a variety of streaming platforms or via other things that you can plug into your television, we are not going to be getting viewing figures, AI scores, chart positions, anything like that, like we used to have in the old days. I guess the chart positions are probably the closest thing you're likely to get, but things like AI scores, John, you brought this up. It used to be the case that the smaller the audience, the higher the AI score, because people would be more engaged with something. But these days, they don't take AI scores of people who go out of their way to watch television. They take AI scores from the people who are watching stuff because the telly's turned on in the background. And so actually the opposite is now the truth. The bigger an audience, the bigger the AI score, because people have come to that program for a reason. And the smaller the audience, the smaller an AI score, because the only people who are still watching it live as it goes out on the telly, and thus are having their AI scores recorded, are the ones who are watching it just because it's on and not because they particularly wanted to. Now, there is a second AI score, which we don't get access to, which is recorded of the people who watched it after the fact, the people who went out of their way to watch a program, but we don't see those AI scores, and presumably they would be higher. So that's my tuppence worth on the AI scores. Do you want to? Is there stuff that you'd like to add?
I'd like to add two things. First, that the Timeless Children got an AI score of 82 which is higher than anything in season 1. And also, only 3 episodes in season 1 got an AI score higher than Orphan 55. So there we go. Thank you very much. I'm not going to apply logic or look at things too deeply, because if we get into flux, things get really sketchy for me. So I'm just going to say that The Timeless Children is better than anything that's been on television recently. Thank you. That is my argument.
I mean, I'm here as the logical one, and the way to apply logic is in 2012, the smart TV began to become ubiquitous, and the smart TV. And so between 2012 and about maybe 2017, there was a huge drop off, a quite fast drop off in just about everything, from AIs to the viewing figures themselves and everything in between. Because, of course, that's when the technology goes wide. And so as it's going wide, the drop off is happening. Once it's gone wide and people get used to using that technology, it continues to drop, but the drop slows down. So actually, between Orphan 55 and now, you would expect the AIs to be slightly lower,
Yes.
obviously, but only a tiny bit now. Whereas before, you know, between 2012 and say 2017, the AIs dropped from like 86 down to like 82 or whatever. And then since then, they've dropped another 4 or 5 points. But you know what I mean? The big drop happened at the end of the last decade.
Absolutely. And I was just because, like, on that point, what you were saying about like the ratings as well, like people talking about Gavin and Stacey, this one-off event that happens and gets 18 million viewers, and
19.
David Tennant coming back, 19 now, wow, yeah. And David Tennant coming back gets 9 million viewers, and all this is very exciting. But also, when people go, well, Doctor Who should be getting 20 million viewers, in the days where big finales of something was getting 20 million viewers, Doctor Who was getting 8 or 9 million viewers. So you know, these, everybody's trying to compare what's happened with Gavin and Stacey or Wallace and Gromit to what's happening with Doctor Who. And as much as I don't like it, it's doing all right on British television as far as we can tell.
Yeah, I know what I mean. The thing about Gavin and Stacey and Wallace and Gromit, they're big one-off events.
Yeah,
exactly. That's what we'll tune for.
You can't make a one-off event something that you do week in, week out. It's not how it works.
And have done for 20 years.
And actually, another thought occurred to me a couple of days ago when these AIs first sort of came across my first sort of appeared in front of me, was that we also compare Doctor Who of the 21st century with Doctor Who of the 20th century in all sorts of ways too. But a thought struck me. Doctor Who in the 21st century has been programmed to be the start of an evening of entertainment. So it's generally 7 or somewhere around about 7. And it's the start of things that you'll watch in the evening. Doctor Who in the 70s and in the 60s, it wasn't the start of an evening's worth of entertainment. Doctor Who was the last thing that was on in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It's a bridge.
Yeah, it's not even a bridge. Doctor Who was the last thing in the afternoon. Then Jukebox Jury was the bridge. And then you had the evening's entertainment.
Oh, yeah, we can get on, but that's fine.
But do you know what I mean? It was on at 5 o'clock, generally speaking, round about 5 o'clock, give or take.
It's filling the gap between Grandstand and Jukebox Jury, essentially. Yeah,
it is. But what I'm saying is, it is the last thing in the afternoon before you have your tea or whatever. It's not the start of the evening; it's the end of the afternoon. And I'm just struck that is two very different things. Having Doctor Who at 5 o'clock as a regular thing and having Doctor Who at 7 o'clock as a regular thing doesn't sound like a huge deal of difference between the two, but actually it's two very different places for it to be.
I believe that's called the Eric Saywood argument. Because he's made that exact argument for you before.
Oh, has he? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yes. No, I get the point. I don't think he knew what he was doing, but that's a conversation for another time. Right, until we have that conversation, I think that's us for tonight. So until we do this again, I was JR.
I was Dylan.
And I was John.
And we will speak again soon.